Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Tommo and welcome to my post-race Chinwag for the 2024 Canadian Grand Prix. Roll intro. Look, I'm late by 4 seconds, alright? Calm down, everyone. I'm a bit closer to the mic today. I'm talking a bit more softly because I have a bit of a sore throat. But, no sick days, no days off, alright? We go again. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining me. Yop, Road Rage, Gladiator, Yard Animal, Isaac, Just, Priest, Luke, Devil's Saint, Gaming Professor, Alvaro, Hilita, Paul, Ur, Tate, Luca, Jamie, Alif, Philippe. It's fine, okay? We'll get through this. And there's plenty to talk about, okay? If you like this more, this is more ASMR Tommo, you could say, right? Thank you all for coming. Oh my God, Lucy McCluskey. There's someone with my surname in the chat. Lucy. There's not many of us around. I feel like I never come across fellow McCluskeys, so it's pretty cool. Going to be a long one. Well, you say that, Aleph, it's going to be a long one, but typically, when it's a long race, by long, I mean like boring, when it feels long, I actually end up talking for ages. And when it's a banger, like yesterday, kind of stinks up the place a bit, doesn't it? And it ends up being a shorter stream, and we'll see how long we go on this one. Right, let's start by propping, as we do, the audio only version. If you do prefer to listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, I do upload these in full as soon as I'm done. So if you want to listen, just using your ears, you're welcome to, You're more than welcome to. You're not catching me out like that, Tin, you try as you like. You're not catching me out like that. But yeah, so if you want to check that out, do so, okay? And let's get a little poll going, because, there's only 4 options in YouTube polls, but for a race rating, I think we only need 4 options. So do you think this race was a 10 out of 10? Do you think it was a 9 out of 10? Do you think it was an 8 out of 10? Or do you think it was a 7 or lower out of 10? I want to hear from you live here on YouTube. 518 of you here currently. Hopefully that number will tick up as we go along. What did you think of Canadian Grand Prix? Did you enjoy yourselves? Did you have a good time watching along? As Lance Stroll, actually Lance did pretty well. Got 7th place in the end. Pretty good. -1 point because of what happened to Albon. Oh, Tina, don't get me started. The pain of what was befallen. Alex befell. I don't know. Either way, right? What are you saying? 411 of you, 412, 421 of you voted. 2% give it a 7 or lower. Oh, you're hard to please. 29% of you give it an 8. 51% of you give it a 9. 17% of you thought this was a 10 out of 10 race. And what an overtake. We will get into the overtake. Don't you worry. Oh, thank you, Seamus, by the way, for gifting some memberships. If you want to join, £2 a month to support what I do on YouTube, that would be kindly appreciated. And thank you, Seamus, for giving people, you get little bit of green next to your name, stuff like that. It's pretty. If you want to support what I do, you can. You don't have to. No obligations here at all. But yeah, right. 544 of you voted. Yeah, basically half of you have given it a 9. Interesting, but that means half of you have not given it a 9 as well. For me, my race rating out of 10 for the Canadian Grand Prix, and we don't do halves, I've given it an 8. It's an 8 out of 10. I think if I'm going to nitpick here, okay, my one critique probably of the Grand Prix was that when you get that drying line, it does make overtaking really difficult. I think if it had been consistent rain throughout and it was always at least drizzling, I feel like it would have been even better, even more entertaining, because you wouldn't have had this established dry line where as long as you stuck to it and didn't make a mistake, which we did see plenty of people making a mistake, then it would have been even better, I think, if you hadn't have had that established dry line. But either way, an 8 out of 10 is still a fantastic score. 10 out of 10 is like one of the greatest races of all time, and it was without that dry line, I think it could have well been a 9. So for me, I'm going to give it an 8. Yeah, sorry, Derek. I'm very quiet today because my voice is a bit up the swanny. So we're just going to move the mic closer and speak a bit more softly. Okay. ASMR Tommo. Read it and weep. Okay, yeah. So for me, it was an 8. It was a very enjoyable Grand Prix. I'm glad as well. I know I was catching a little bit of Canada Circuit Gilles Villeneuve slander beforehand. Actually, people say, "Oh, it's just like Monaco. It's just rubbish races now." I'm like, really? I've always liked Canada. I'm biased because I've been as well, and it was like my favourite Grand Prix to actually visit. I think that's of all the ones I've been to, that was the one I would recommend above all else. Very easy to get there from central Montreal. It was a vibe. And thank you, Yop. I'm going to say Yop the group for gifting a membership as well. £2 a month. Get to know. Okay, let's reflect on the race results, and then we'll get into the meat and bones of this, shall we? Okay, let's reflect as Max Verstappen takes a win. Really jarring doing this graphic and having no red on the left-hand side, because this is the first time all season we've had no red on the left-hand side. Because Science has finished every race before this one, I think P5 or above, right? Obviously, he missed the race where Ollie replaced him, but all the races he's participated in before this one, he'd finished P5 or above, I think. And certainly I know that Leclerc had finished P4 or above in every single race prior to this. However, Canada did not go well for the Scuderia, did it? Max Verstappen takes the win ahead of Lando Norris, but it could quite have easily been the other way round. Safety car giveth, safety car taketh away. Okay? That's racing. And Lando Max was so gracious in defeat when he lost in Miami. Lando kind of had to be, even if he didn't want to be, to be like, you know what, game's the game. Like, I got the lucky safety car last time, which helped me out, and Max got the lucky safety car this time that helped him out, certainly. But yeah, Russell holds on to P3 podium. Obviously, great job in qualifying from him. He did get a bit of a tow. Kind of like, when Max got the tow from Hulkenberg in Imola to get pole. Russell got a tow from Albon here he did the exact same time as Max. 1 minute 12 to the point 3. The IndyCar has 4 tenths afterwards, isn't it? It's 4 decimal places after. That's too much, though. When I look at those IndyCar graphics and I see 4, I'm like, bro, this shouldn't be necessary. I mean, on a day like that, Russell said it first, so he got pole position in the end. Lewis P4 he was very disappointed with his race after the fact, wasn't he, Lewis? Very disappointed with his race, very critical of himself afterwards. Even though, he was giving us good entertainment, him and Fernando scrapping, but he couldn't get past for a long time, could he? Piastri, P5, fell away towards the end pace-wise, could have been damaged from his contact with Russell. Hard to know for sure. Good day for Aston Martin, finally, 6 and 7, Alonso Stroll. Ricciardo P8. It's a great job in qualifying from Daniel. Really bad start from him. Got pinged for jump in the start, even though when you watch it back, he doesn't look like he jumps to start. Or Jacques Villeneuve, the one. Did he jump into the steward's room to give him that one? Maybe. I mean, Daniel was saying he figures he must have been like creeping forward or something. And yeah, he rolls very slightly. Because also Yuki had a bad start. And I know that the RBs, Racing Bulls, have Daniel's complained about this before in terms of off the line. Yuki had a bad start as well. Maybe it's just, there's something with this car where it struggles off the line, particularly obviously starting in the wet. It was a very sketchy pull away, wasn't it? But I enjoyed it. It was good. I'm glad we got a standing start as well. I'm glad they didn't do rolling start for that. That was fun. That was a really fun first lap. And then the Alpines, P9 and P10, 3 points on the board for Alpine. Both the Allez le Bleu, or Allez le Pink, should we say, in the points. Although, maybe they should have been the other way round. We'll get into that in a minute. A bit of team orders there from Alpine, just to stick the knife into Ocon. Or was Ocon actually being petulant and gave Gasly the position so late on that Gasly was never going to get the move done on Ricciardo anyway? We will talk about this. Ocon said he always follows team order. Yeah, I like when Ocon was like, I'm too nice. I'm like, I'm sure outside of the car, I completely agree. I think Ocon comes across as a lovely bloke when he's not in the car. When it comes to your teammate, bro, there's receipts. I'm sorry. Either way. Anyway, at least they both got points. At least Alpine actually scored and actually moved up a position in the Constructors, which we'll get to shortly. Somehow, the Haas wants it. The amount of times Hulkenberg finishes P11, I don't know. Obviously, they were on a genius Haas strategy at the start with the wet tyres, but the rain didn't come enough down for him. If it had continued raining a bit more, Haas could have been maybe that Hulkenberg podium. Although he almost got whacked out by Tsunoda at the end. So, yeah, that start was pretty crazy. It was like, watching it, I was like, bro, you're going to get Haas on the podium and it's going to be Magnussen, isn't it? Even though Hulkenberg's been quite considerably better than him for their tenure together as teammates. It will be Magnussen who gets the podium. Of course it will. Didn't happen. Bottas P13 again. I feel like I never have to change this position on the race result either. Bottas is always 13th. Tsunoda 14th. Good position. Very good weekend. And then bottled it. Drops out the points. Big shame. Certainly, I feel like the question marks we have around George Russell, and George obviously hit the sausage curb, cost him position and maybe a better finish in the race. But I feel like George and Yuki are both very, very complete drivers now. But they both have a mistake in them, didn't they? It's true. Yuki last year in Mexico with Piastri, they both have a mistake in them, even though they're both very talented. Hamilton is purple because he got fastest lap. AK4. And yes, science was classified, technically. Science was classified, according to the F1 website anyway. Joe P15. I swear, since I made that video about him, he's been stinking. Bottas is absolutely... Joe, come on, bro, this is not good enough. You're not putting yourself in the shot window. Bottas was just clear. He was like 8 seconds clear of Joe after about half the race. Not a good weekend for Joe Guan Yu. Carlos Sainz P16. Obviously wasn't going very well anyway, and then he spun on his own and took out Alex Albon, which I'm not angry about at all. James Vowles was like, nah, that contract's gone. Sorry, Carlos, but you denied us points. And then Albon, Perez, Leclerc, Sargent, all for various reasons. Well, 3 for crash damage, 1 for Leclerc. The Ferrariing on him. It was a bit of a throwback, wasn't it? They've been very good as of late, Ferrari. Very sound, very, decent strategy, clear, concise information going to the drivers. But this was a messy one. This was a messy weekend for the Grazie Ragazzi. So how does that affect the driver standings? Well, Max extends his lead at the front, of course. No Ferrari points at all. So his lead is now 56 points. Charles Leclerc. Certainly not insurmountable, but that's a big L from the Drivers' Championship point of view for Charles Leclerc and Ferrari, because Lando is now just 7 points behind Charles, 138 to 131. Sainz still 108. Perez still 107. Of course, both of them out the points as well. Yeah, look, 3 of the top 5 didn't score a single point this weekend. Ouch. Piastri 81, good points for him. Closes that gap somewhat, but not massive. Still a big gap between him and Checo. That's 26 points. And then Russell, Hamilton, good points for them. 69-55, nice, of course. Alonso 41, Tsunoda 19. Stroll still behind Tsunoda, 17 points to Yuki's 19. Then Ricciardo jumps up with 9 points. Hulkenberg, Gasly, Albon, Ocon, Magnussen, Joe, Bottas, Sargent. Obviously good points for Gasly and Ocon, which does mean, constructors-wise, Williams drop below Alpine. That is the only change in position, constructors-wise. Red Bull 301. Obviously good points for Max. No points for Checo, but still pretty good. Can I change the Mercedes colours? No. Mercedes colour is better, because it is mainly a black car, isn't it? So, and I think turquoise would be a bit too much on the graphics, in my opinion. Yeah, somehow, Bottas is still behind Joe in the driver's standing. Somehow. It's because, obviously, Joe got the P11 in Bahrain, didn't he? That P11 in Bahrain, his first race of the season, it was like, oh, okay. Go on, Joe. He's found something. No, he is not. Whatever he did find, he is now lost and needs to find it again. Check behind the sofa, mate. I'm sure it's down there. But yeah, McLaren closing up to Ferrari big time in the constructors, though. That's 40-point gap now. Very achievable, I think, for McLaren. Given what we've had 9 races, we've got 24 in total. That's 14 more races to go. Yeah, 14 more to go. Plenty of time for this to change up. Okay, so let's talk predictions then. All right. We all made our predictions on Thursday. If you were here for the stream, thank you for coming. If you weren't, maybe next time, right? Before Spanish Grand Prix, we'll be doing it on Wednesday or Thursday. I typically do my pre-race live stream. And we predicted how this weekend's Canadian Grand Prix would go. Well, my predictions were really good in Monaco. This weekend, not so good. So, race winner Max, spot on. Banger drive Alex Albon. Got the yellow cross through, maybe, kind of. It's pretty good. If he hadn't have been taken out by Carlos, then I think he would have been up in the conversation for banger drive for sure. Clanger drive Ocon. No, actually Ocon had a very strong drive. Banger team Williams. Again, maybe if Alex had converted the points, I'd be a bit more inclined to, but I think there's other teams out there who had stronger weekends for sure. So not Williams. Clanger team Sauber. I mean, they were rubbish, but at least they both finished the race. There's more for it than that. Double overtake from Alex was very good. But do I think he had a banger drive this weekend? He's up there, but for me, it's not. There's other drivers who stood out more, I would say. So my predictions, I got 1 right, I got 2 maybe, and I got 2 definitely wrong. So not great. As for your predictions, 1,598 if you voted. Race winner Max Verstappen correct. Banger drive Oscar Piastri. No. Wasn't a bad drive. Not at all. But not a banger. Clanger drive Checo. I mean, he's certainly it's him and Logan, isn't it? Come on. Realistically, it's him and Logan. So he gets a tick. Banger team McLaren. Yeah, maybe. There are other teams. Obviously, Alpine scored double points. Aston scored double points for the first time in a while. Mercedes obviously jumped forward big time. So I'm not saying 100% McLaren. I'll give them a yellow cross through. Same with Sauber as well. You went Clanger team Sauber, as did I. And certainly I think with McLaren there's a conversation as whether they could have been a bit smarter and maybe manufactured a 2-3. But we'll get into that. We will get into that. So your predictions were better than mine this weekend. Well done, you. Pat yourself on the back. You're losing next time, all right? I'm not having this. I'm not having you lot out predict me on my own stream. It's just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. Right, okay, cool. So, Lomo for a reason, always. Always, biggest McLaren fan, always. Okay, my bangers and clangers. 2024 Canadian Grand Prix. Who am I picking? Well, banger drive. There were many names. There were many good performances in very, 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 very difficult conditions. Was there a driver who didn't make a mistake? I feel like everyone had at least one. But for me, pulling it, I think it's one of them races again where he made the difference. You talk about the car all you like, but Max Verstappen's my banger drive because he made the difference this weekend again. You look at how completely out of sorts Checo was. Did he get lucky with a safety car? Absolutely. Lando got lucky with a safety car in Miami and delivered. But Max was quicker when it dried up. And it dried up at the end. Game's the game. Yes, if Lando had pitted before that safety car and got in and came out ahead of Max, Would Max have had enough of a pace advantage over Lando to actually get a move done on him? Maybe. He may still have won. Lando felt like he had the pace, but I feel like Max might have even still had a chance. So, for me, Max Verstappen, banger drive. It's one of them, innit? If I don't mind him winning every race if it's like this, okay? It's exciting. He's had to fight tooth and nail. The team, when you look at the brake, he had brake on fire, wasn't it? Was it brake? It was something on fire, wasn't it? Something to do with the engine, actually. In practice, obviously in qualifying as well, like, he was the only person who improved on that second run. And he matched George to the 1,000th of a second with no toe as well. Again, around a track that, big curbs, they were going to struggle anyway. And Max still managed to find a way to match pole position and win the race. Bosh. Whatever locked suspension meant as well. I know I'm saying that on the radio. I've got locked. I guess it's kind of when the car's feeling so stiff, you hit the slightest curb and it's like there is no suspension. It's just rock solid. I imagine that's what he was alluding at. But yeah, great drive from Max. Unreal. Extends his gap at the top. Clanger drive. It's Checo or Logan. Logan got to Q2. Perez crashed into the wall. Well, they both crashed into the wall. But Perez has now copped himself a 3-place grid drop for the next race because he drove back to the pits with his broken rear wing. So I'm giving it to Sergio Perez. But I mean, especially obviously as Max has gone and won the race and put on an incredible performance. And Checo has just, brother, again, I can't do this. I can't keep doing this. Man. 3 in a row now. 3 absolute howlers in a row for Sergio Perez. And it's his, there's no one's fault but his own. Like, he's just, look, it was going to be difficult with that drying line for him to make up positions, but it wasn't impossible. We still saw plenty of moves. I'd have liked to have seen more. If it was a wet race throughout, I think we would have seen more. But, bro, come on. It's just, it's not good. To be fair, Levs, that's a good shout, actually. Joe is certainly has to be in the conversation for Clanger as well. He obviously hit the wall, didn't he? What was that in? Was that in practice or was that in the race? I can't even remember when Joe hit the wall. Yeah, Joe, Logan, and Sergio were the three dunces this week. Oh, FP3, that was it. FP3, yeah, you're right, Mark. Yeah, they were the 3 dunces this weekend by a margin as well. As much as, the Ferraris had their issues, that the car clearly just, the fact they were both struggling meant the car just clearly wasn't there, and questionable strategy in qualifying, putting him on the useds and whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't put too much of that on the Ferrari drivers themselves. So Sergio, you take Clanger drive this weekend. Sorry, mate. Banger team, on the other hand, my banger team is Mercedes. They're finally, they seem to have actually found something. They seem to have actually closed that gap and made that top 3 a top 4. Now, look, maybe this is track specific, but George getting on the podium, P3, P4, you got to give it to Mercedes. They're finally, the talk seems to have stopped based off of what we saw in Monaco and the underlying pace we saw in Monaco with that front wing with George, and how close George was to Lando in quali, like, half a tenth quicker, and he's lining up on the front row, I think, right? He's very close. And now, very good weekend. I know Lewis wasn't happy, but, P3, P4, put it on pole as well. You got to take those. Given where Mercedes have been, very good weekend for them. If they can make this top 3 or top 4, yes, please. That would be simply lovely. And then Clanger team, I mean, it's Ferrari, isn't it? Of course it is. It has to be Ferrari. They somehow managed to bring a car to Canada, which excelled in Monaco, and it was just nowhere. I think tyre warm-up seems to be the issue. They're very kind on their tyres, which is great. It's going to be great in Catalonia, next race. It was nice and hot, probably dry. Being kind on your tyres is going to be good. But when you're struggling for temperature and you can't generate it in the tyres, you're going to be out of sorts. And again, questionable strategy in terms of qualifying, leaving them both out on used tyres instead of pitting for new to get into Q3. And then obviously Charles' car had an issue. He had to pull in. It felt like he kind of did like the master reset and it seemed to fix it. But then he also went on slick tyres then. So the race was already over. Felt like, just park the car, retire the car, save the engine. Bosh. Sainz had floor damage. Yeah, obviously Sainz had his fair share of shenanigans, as he does tend to get caught up in a bit, doesn't he? Oh, Carlos. But yeah, it was just a bit questionable. I'm sure they could Forza, because wasn't Charles asking for fresh tyres in Q2? I'm sure he was. Well, either way, bad weekend for Ferrari. Not very well. It's like Ferrari of old, isn't it? Throwback to a traditional Ferrari. Did you see the snippet of radio when Charles' engineer says, "We are SHIT anyway"? No, I didn't, Helito. I did not see that. But I love it. That's a vibe. Okay, so those are my bangers and clangers. Banger drive, Max Verstappen. Clanger drive, Sergio Perez. Banger team, Mercedes. Clanger team, Ferrari. But on to yours, the more important ones. You lot, 2,590 of you voted, so thank you for voting if you did. If you didn't see the poll, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, to the Tommo YouTube channel, notifications, like the stream while you're at it as well. And then you will see the community post when I post these polls. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. I did post this one on Twitter, even though people on Twitter like to mess with these, but now I've changed it so you lot can't see the results of the poll when you finish it. So I like to think that will stop people messing with it, So your bangers and clangers for the 2024 Canadian Grand Prix, your banger drive is Max Verstappen with 41% of the vote. We are aligned. 22% Oscar Piastri, 7% George Russell, 6% Daniel Ricciardo. That is your top 4 banger drives. Couldn't agree more, especially on the Max front. Banger drive Oscar Piastri was, yeah, no, the graphics wrong. Sorry, the graphics. I saw that. I was like, 22% of you gave Oscar Piastri bang on drive when he finished 5th. Sorry, 3 places behind his teammate. Now, of course, what I meant to say, because I never get these graphics wrong ever. This is a first. This is a first. Look, all of you have been here consistently can back this, okay? This is a first. Because, in fact, with 22% of the vote, your banger driver was, I'm just going to make sure I update the right one here, was Logan. Oh, wait, no, it's not Logan Sargent, is it? See, look, comedy. I might not have a voice, but I'm still the funniest guy you know. Okay. Lando Norris, 22% of the vote is your second place banger drive, ahead of George Russell and Daniel Ricciardo. Okay. Clanger drive, quite a convincing one, this one. 61% of the vote. Oh, the old graphics wrong. Oh, for God's sake. I've got right. Doesn't mean I know. Okay, we're going to ignore that. 61% of the vote. Checo. Logan Sargent, 14%. Carlos Sainz, 9%. Charles Leclerc, 6%. Lovely. Ignore the No, Oscar's not back again. What are you talking about? So we're in agreement. We're in agreement to a point. Banger team. Mercedes, 66% of the vote. 20% McLaren, 6% Alpine, 5% Aston Martin. 3 and 3. We are fully aligned. Are we going to be 4 and 4? Clanger team. 84% Ferrari. We are. We agree for once. We're all aligned. Everyone agrees. There is no friction, no disagreements, no cyberbullying. All right, we're all friends here. Don't worry about that. 84% of the vote for Ferrari is an L. 5% Sauber, 5% Alpine, 3% Williams. World peace finally achieved. Couldn't put it better myself, Max. We're finally here. The duality of Alpine. I know, right? Banger team and clanger team. We'll get into why, because you'd think on the face of it, Alpine is banger. But no. They find a way to mess with things, don't they? Let's talk about Alpine then. We'll go in alphabetical order, team by team. You don't need a race review, do you? Like point by point. We'll just go by what happened for the individual teams because you've watched it. You know what's going on. Also, 2,000 of you here live. Love that. Like the stream if you're here live. Appreciate you all being here. Alain Le Bleu. Okay, so interesting race. Obviously, Ocon was serving his grid drop that he got in Monaco, so he was starting towards the back. Obviously, the Saubers took new rear wings, so they actually started from the pit lane, which obviously helped Esteban nerf that penalty somewhat. Pierre obviously had his tangle with Checo on the first lap. Almost ended his race, but carried on. And kind of both having their race, doing their thing. You've got to imagine, if Ferrari don't stink, if Albon doesn't get taken out, if Perez actually drives that Red Bull where it should be, then they're not getting the points. But at the end of the day, the opportunity presented itself, and towards the end of the race, very interesting. So my understanding here is that with 3 laps to go, which I think is important context that may have been missed by some of you, or just some people talking about this. With 3 laps to go, Ocon was told to let Pierre by. Ocon was P9, Gasly P10, Ricciardo was P8 ahead. The team, according to the team, they made this call because they were like, we want Pierre to have a go at Ricciardo. And we think Pierre's better placed to have a go at Ricciardo. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. I don't know if I'm going to sneeze. It's like right here. I think the moment's passed. Hay fever's killing me this year, by the way. I don't know anyone else. Hay fever. Pollen. I hate pollen. Okay? Pollen can suck it. Alright? I know pollen's very important to the ecosystem, but up yours, pollen. So Ocon's running P9, Gasly's running P10. The team are like, right, Esteban, we want Pierre to have a go at Daniel. Esteban does not immediately let Pierre through. It takes him like, he's on the penultimate lap. It takes him like a while. He doesn't immediately let Pierre through, which then you're like, well, okay. Does he leave it late so that he can be like, oh, I'm the team player, but actually it was calculated to not let him through straight away to give him less of a chance to have a go at Ricciardo? Yeah. Esteban took 2 business days to respond. So, look, do I think it was a smart call? What I would have... The call to make in that situation, and we've had this before, and I swear we've talked about this with Alpine specifically before, being like, right, let Pierre pass. If he can't get past Daniel, Pierre will give you the position back on the line. I think that's fair. I think that's completely fair, and I think given in that situation, if the team had been like, right, Esteban, let Pierre pass to have a go at Ricciardo. If he can't pass Ricciardo, he'll slow up at the line and let you retake P9. I think that is a fair way of going about it, because at the end of the day, right, unless you're fighting for a world championship, where you finish in the drivers' championship does not really matter. No one actually cares, okay? Unless you're winning, unless you're P1, it's all about the team and getting more points. Look, Esteban was like, I'm too nice. And I'm like, hang on a second. And look, I'm a known Ocon defender, okay? I'm a known Esteban enjoyer, okay? I've got a lot of time for Esteban. And I put my hands up that sometimes he doesn't make it easy for himself. And in this instance, I'm like, well, I don't think it was quite as cut and dry as maybe he tried to make it out to be. So Pierre finished ahead of him. Esteban wasn't happy. said I'm too nice in relation to his teammate, which, yeah, I mean, look, they've got like 14 races still to go together, so I think this is just going to murmur on. And I don't know, I just don't think this, the way he's like gone about this, even just like the way he's talking afterwards, like his priority right now should be like, right, I need to look good for another team to come pick me up. And it's like, I don't know, being a bit sassy afterwards when you could have let him through quicker to then give Pierre more of an opportunity to do the job that Alpine wanted him to do, which is to overtake Ricciardo and get another extra 2 points for Alpine, because those points are huge for Alpine right now. They've more than doubled their entire points haul in one race here, and they could have done even more than that. So, yeah, I don't know. My immediate reaction was like, Alpine, why are you swapping them? Like, what is the value? But then when I realised that, oh wait, they asked him with 3 laps to go, and then he took a lap and a half to actually do it, I'm like, okay. Fair enough. You'd love it if someone like Alonso said it, Rowski. You know what? And look, Rowski, you make a good point, right? I think these drivers are all judged differently. And if Fernando did the same... I always say this with Vettel in Baku, right? When he crashed into the side of Lewis on purpose. And then, like, that incident, if you put different drivers into that, there's some drivers who do not get away with doing that. Seb got away with doing it. He did. He got away in the public perception. He got away with that. If you put other drivers into that situation, they're all going to be judged differently. And it's the same like, you know, when Kimi Räikkönen would be a bit rude, well, very rude sometimes. But because it was Kimi, and it's like that's his character, and people would find him very endearing and very to the point, he gets away with it. But then like Lance, I see a lot of similar kind of, you know, he doesn't want to do the media and he's not interested in being there. But because he doesn't have the almost like the social credit that Kimi established over time, Lance doesn't get away with it because, you know, he's the most obvious pay driver on the grids, and there's a lot of people who don't like Lance because of that. Yeah, it's a good point. It is a good point. They're not all treated the same. Lance isn't a world champion. And again, you build that credit over time. And unfortunately, because Ocon isn't very popular, even though he's got a win, even though he's been on every step of the podium, his lack of popularity does not help him in these instances. So, but yeah. Anyway, right, that's about that on Alpine. Aston Martin, finally. Actually, quite a quiet race, though. Obviously, Alonso, Hamilton were giving us some pretty decent squabbling at the start. God, when Alonso proper lost it, didn't he? Coming out of that turn, whatever it is, the first kind of hairpin, turn 3? I don't do corner names. They never stick in my head. As much as I try. I do try. I promise I do try, but they just don't stick. But yeah, clean race. Stroll P7, very unproblematic, clean. That's exactly what Aston Martin needed. Obviously not ideal for them that Mercedes have seemingly made a big jump up, right? Because we were talking at the start of the year, Aston versus Mercedes could be quite close. Now it feels like Mercedes have found something where Aston are still lagging behind and have to worry a bit more about racing balls behind them. But very little to say on Aston Martin, really. Just a very, solid drive, good weekend, both into Q3. They're kind of just on their own. They're kind of where Alpine used to be. When Alpine would kind of sit in this uncanny valley between like the top teams and the rest. So yeah, I think all in all, pretty good. Yeah, that Alonso versus Hamilton Blake, like it was so. It's we got it good with them two, and they're not going to be around forever. I mean, what's their combined age? Like 81 or something, 82? Can someone find out their combined age? Because that is crazy. Yeah, it was good. It was good vibes. Well done, Aston Martin. About time and all. Because when I went there to watch Imola, it was a stinker. So, good to hear. Good to see that the vibes are better. 39 and 42. Yeah, 81. Jeez. 81. What an age. Oh, shout out. Was it Mary Mary McGee, who was hanging about on the grid beforehand. She was an ex-motorbike racer, doing the rounds. What a story. Love that. Oh, and Jamie Chadwick as well. Talking of females in motorsport, Jamie Chadwick won Indy Next. Road Atlanta. I love Road Atlanta, by the way. No, Road America, sorry. I love Road Atlanta. That's one of my favourite tracks in the US, actually, from my old Forza days. But Road America is good as well. And Jamie took the dub. P1 in quali and took the dub as well. So shout out Jamie. Chuffera. Obviously, I've met... Has anyone watched the time I did Hot Ones with Jamie back in the old Veloce days? We did an interview and we had the Hot Ones sauces. Straight copy, but it's good fun. Now Jamie's really, really good energy I got from Jamie. She's I wish her well in Indy Next. She's doing bits. Okay, next team, Ferrari. Oh dear. Yikes. Yeah, look, struggle with tyre warm up, and I think that put them on the back foot, and it seemed to stress the team into kind of mistakes. Obviously, Charles' Ferrari engine was struggling in the race as well. It was like Noah's or something, wasn't it? And he was losing a bunch of time down the straights. So Albon overtake him, and I was like, come on. But I was like, it shouldn't be that easy. He got past Charles way before the Wall of Champions chicane, like miles before. So, yes, it was one to forget. They just got to move on. Like, sometimes you have these stinker weekends at a track that just doesn't work for you. You know, Red Bull have had it in Singapore more recently, and low, obviously resurfaced, so the tyre wear wasn't particularly high, so it's again difficult to generate temperature, and they suffered the price for it, really. So you had to do the control delete or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, not good. Not much more to say than that, really. Charles was getting a bit flustered on the radio, but of course he's going to be, right? He's meant to be in a championship fight, and this is the last thing they need, especially with Max taking the win as well. Fortunately, Checo getting no points meant the Constructors is a bit better on that front. But my words, oh Ferrari, oh Fred, what are you playing at? Right, before we move on, I just realised there's a bunch of super chats that I've not even looked at, so I'm going to get on that now. Thank you all for supporting what I do. I really do appreciate it. You don't have to super chat, of course. Just being here, just watching what I do enables me to do this as a job. What a privilege that is, honestly. Thank you, Elliot, for the super chat. TV direction was awful again. Was screaming at the TV when they cut to Piastri's rear wing during Russell battle. Oh, that one was... Piastri was doing nothing. He was just driving. He was just meandering around. Yeah, that was a shocker. Heads need to roll in the director's room. Look, don't get me wrong, right? It must be a very tough job to orchestrate all of that because there's moves going on all the time. I did notice a couple of, at least watching the Sky broadcast, they had, when they were showing the replays, they had a little live camera in the top right-hand corner, which I hadn't noticed before. They've got access to all of these onboards. I would like to see more split screen stuff where possible. The thing is, you've got to try and make one broadcast, one feed that's going to appease everyone. And some people aren't going to like split screens all over the place. It is a difficult job, but you're right. There's times like that where you're like, what? I don't understand what was the logic of cutting to Piastri, making a conscious choice to cut into Piastri. Like, had he had a moment a little bit before that we hadn't really seen? Like, I don't know. It's bit of a stinker at times. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's one of them. I'd love to do a video. That would be an interesting one, actually. Oh, that would be a sick video. Imagine if I could get access. This is not going to happen, but I could do it myself, and I had to manage it with old race footage or something. And I had to do it. I'm not suggesting they'd actually give me the live race to do. I mean, obviously, I'd be sick at it. Obviously, there would be no issues. But that'd be cool. Maybe one day. Thank you, Daniel, as well, for the super chat. Race 7 is really good. I definitely like Albon, double overtake. And Hamilton was robbed. Was Hamilton robbed? I've seen a few people say... in what way was Hamilton robbed? I don't really know. I don't know. Am I missing something? Am I missing some context in which Lewis might have been robbed? Putting him on the hards and Russell on the mediums at the end? Is that the logic? I don't really know. I can't say I am aware of a way in which he may have been robbed. You can't say British bias when they're both British. George is the most stereotypical British upper class man. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure he was. I just think, honestly, right, George has the upper hand on Lewis in one lap pace. He just does. And this is what I'm saying about, I am concerned Lewis going to Ferrari, because I think Charles is even better than George over a lap. I think George is underrated over a lap. And obviously George was helped by the toe that he got off Alex, granted, for sure. But I think when it matters, George is able to find that bit of pace that Lewis can't over a lap. But I think over a race distance, I firmly trust Lewis more than I do George, for sure. It's just... And look, how much of that is Lewis leaving? And the team would be naive to not switch focus over to. And I think Lewis would be naive to expect that. I don't think he expects that. It would be silly. You can't expect as a driver, an outgoing driver, that you're going to be privy to all the information that's going to necessarily maximise a weekend. Especially as he's going to Ferrari. He's not just leaving to Ferrari. He's going to Ferrari, who are better than Mercedes at the moment. We didn't see that this weekend, but they are more complete than Mercedes at the moment. So Mercedes got to think of themselves in this situation. Lewis has been an incredible servant to that team, but his time is coming to an end, and they have to move on, and they have to maximise their potential moving forward, because it's been a hell of a fall off after the levels they were producing up in 21. So there you go. But thank you for the super chat, Daniel. Appreciate it. And thank you, Leslie, as well, for the super chat. Are you going to go full mainstream media and call Lando versus Max a title fight? Well, look, let's remind ourselves as we go back through all these graphics one at a time. Oh, beautiful graphics. Look at them. They're so good. But your predictions, then driver standings. Well, look, this difficult weekend for Ferrari has certainly played into the hands of Max, and he was able to capitalise, which is what a champion does, you know. Max, I'm very sure Max will win the championship this year. Do I think he'll have to fight for it more than last year? Much more than last year. Do I think it will go to the final race? Probably not. But I think it will go a lot longer than it did last season. So, Lando v a title fight. This is what I mean, right? A fight. What is a fight? You know? If you just walk in and just go bang, knock out in one, right? Done. That's not a fight. That's just that's a sucker punch, right? Max sucker punched everyone last year. There was no fight, okay? This year, I think there's still so many races to go. Obviously, what is ominous is that Red Bull are apparently due to bring some upgrades in Spain. And even without upgrades, you would think that track's going to play to their strengths big time. So if they bring an upgraded RB20 to Spain, that could be a sucker punch, right? That could be a sucker punch. But obviously, before this weekend, you looked at the points, 31 between them, going into Canada. I think it's going to be. I think it is going to be something that resembles a fight. Is it enough to be like, inject it, it's happening, Lando title? No. I think it's going to be a fight that goes almost to the last race, but I reckon the title will be done with 2 races to go. That's what I'm going to say. Two races to go. So for the first 22 of 24, there will be some potential hope of someone else winning. Yeah, 2018-19 vibes. Yeah, exactly. Which I think, again, look, it's fair, like 2018, certainly there was a fight in the first half of the season. Lewis wasn't even leading from Vettel, from Seb, but yeah, it just depends what you define a fight, right? It just depends what you define a fight to be. Thank you, Gladiator, for the super chat. Sargent, at least strong quali, beat Perez 6 times now. Wow. 6 times? 6 times he's beaten Sergio in quali. Jeez. Yeah, but I mean, that race from Logan, like, even afterwards, he was just like, yeah, that was terrible. Hands up. I just had a stinker. And, I mean, the fact that James Vowles has literally openly said Sainz is their number one priority. They want Carlos Sainz. You know, Logan knows, he knows that his time at that team is coming to it. Part of me is like, why don't they just announce it that Sargent's leaving at the end of the season, just to take all of this talk away? I don't know if that would be better or worse for Logan to have it just out there that he's not going to continue with that team next year. They've given him 2 years, which I think it's a year longer than a lot of people would have given him. They've given him 2 years. Have they given him a fair crack of the whip? You could argue maybe not. Like, obviously upgrades being behind Alex, and also obviously giving Logan's car to Alex in Australia. But they gave him a chance, and I feel like he's had more than enough opportunities to take that chance, and he just, yeah, frustrating for Logan. Frustrating. Thank you, Kiefer, as well, for the super chat. Red Bull should loan Liam out to Williams for the rest of the season. He and Alex are bros. They are, to be fair. They are. Boys have seen them doing that lap of the Nürburgring where the Miata are in front of them. The MX-5 is like, way. Very good. Would that be of value to... Maybe that would be of value to Red Bull. I think Sargent right now, I don't know. Like, I've already obviously done my video talking about why I think a mid-season drop for Logan would make sense. Obviously, that was before Carlos Sainz became a realistic option, and he's not going to leave Ferrari mid-season. But you know what, Keith? I don't hate that suggestion, because I guess you've got to think, like, what have Williams got to gain from that? But then, if I had to make a choice today to put either Liam Lawson or Logan Sargent in an F1 car to get it home, like, after those races that Liam did. The thing is, Logan understands this Williams. Liam would be coming into a car with a different engine, completely different. Like, he'd have to learn a lot in a quick period of time. I don't doubt that he could do it, but he'd have to learn a whole different way of F1 carring. And obviously, Williams might be like, well, he's going to come here, he's going to find out how we do things and maybe take that to Red Bull. I don't think Williams have much that Red Bull would want to steal, to be honest. I don't think they're looking at Williams and being like, oh yeah, ripe for the taking, we're going to steal all their knowledge. I'm not so sure about that. So there's certainly that's an interesting point, Kiefer. I don't hate that point. I don't hate that point at all. Sargent will be done by the summer break, do you reckon? It just depends if Carlos Sainz was a free agent right now, then obviously he'd be in that car. Like, if they can get the deal done anyway. Even if it's just. But then if they're pulling Logan, who are they putting in for the rest of the season? Liam, his caveats. Like, is it really worth it for Williams to put Liam in? I don't know. Hard to say. Outlaw, thank you for the super chat. Give a like if you think you can like super chats now. That's quite a recent thing. I've only noticed recently. Give a like if you think Max is the GOAT. Max is definitely, like, the levels that he's able to produce and the consistency in which he can produce it. He is the way, when we talk about, like, the GOAT debate, right? The way I kind of think about it more is that I think about it kind of like generations. And for me, like, you go to old generations, and for me, it's probably, from what I know, from what I've read, from what I've watched, it's Fangio or Jim Clark. Fangio, like, laid a lot of the, groundwork for success in the sport. I'd probably say Jim Clark. I think he, you hear from other drivers in the moment, and they all say Jim. was the guy. Now, obviously, maybe, you know, part of that is because he lost his life while still in his prime. And then, obviously, your legacy's looked at differently then. I think Jim Clark's right up there. I think Alain Prost is so underrated. He's so overlooked. And I do think he, you know, yeah, I think him in, it's like, for me, it's like Clark, then it's like Prost. You obviously got a bit of overlap with like Michael Schumacher. I think Schumacher was just an absolute android. And it almost feels like, I want to say like Schumacher and Hamilton, but like Schumacher and Hamilton and then Prost, all their generations kind of overlap a bit. But it's like Clark, Prost, Schumacher, Hamilton are the names that come to mind. But Max is like, when we think in the head now, it's like, bro, the levels Max is delivering are just, they are, he will be considered one of the greatest to ever do it by the time his career ends. It's just, a lot of it's how soon his career ends as well, right? And the only reason I don't say Senna is because I do rate Prost over Senna. I've said this before. I think over the course of their career, I think you look at how, the thing is, Senna, you know, Senna passed before he was able to, he could have won more championships. That's the thing. And looking at what we have, I would say Prost over Senna. But this is like, they're just both incredible. I think Senna over a lap is probably the greatest of all time. But I think as a complete package, I would pick Prost over Senna if I was like a team principal back in the day. But that's a conversation for another day, I suppose. How did we get even onto this? Oh yeah, because give a like if you think Max is the GOAT. Thank you, Ethan John. Almost said Elton John there. I'm sure you get that, Ethan. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What happens first? Alonso retires or Leclerc wins the World Drivers' Championship? Alonso retires. I think it's tough. It's tough. I think 26. 26 is going to be so big, isn't it? It's crazy. Thank you, Blake, as well. Super chat. Nothing to say. Just want to support the best creative. Oh, stop it. Thank you, Blake. Very kind. Shout out. Shout out Matt as well. Love that. Deprived. Oh, very kind of you, Blake. Appreciate that. Thank you, Daniel, as well, for the super chat. Sargent was done the time he rolled out. Oh, Daniel. Not very nice about young Logan. Look. The main reason I was like, right, I believe because of how well he held his own against Piastri and Pourchaire in those junior formulas, and I feel like there's ability, there's talent there. I think as having that isn't enough. Having talent and raw speed is not enough. And I think the mental game that comes with F1, I think the mistakes that he's made, the significance and the regularity of mistakes, in the same way that it's what kind of we're seeing with Checo now, it's a mindset thing. It's a mentality struggle. I don't think it's a talent struggle. I really don't. So, yeah. Game's a game. And finally, Jamie, thank you, Jamie, for supporting what I do. In your opinion, did Daniel Ricciardo really jump the start? I mean, I've watched it back. I didn't really see. I didn't see any movement, but it's the kind of rule where you think, you know, if he's jumped the start, he's jumped the start, and it's a matter of fact. So, yeah, hard to say. Right, Haas F1 team. Oh, what a start as well. Jeez, man. It was looking good. It was looking very good, wasn't it, at one point, and then it was not. 11 and 12 in the end, just outside the points. Frustrated they couldn't capitalise, of course. I mean, they rolled the dice and it seemed to pay off. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, it was a net gain, but it's kind of hard to say. So, yeah, switch too late to Inters. Pulling Magnussen in off the wets when you've made that call as a team and then the Inters are not ready is a L. That is a shocker. And they had like an 8-second pit stop because of it. And that was at quite an important time, actually, because they boxed him on the Inters early. Obviously, Hulkenberg they left out to dry on the wets, hoping for a safety car or more rain or whatever. And some, when you're at the point, sometimes you kind of play to these unlikely eventualities. Was it like what race was it? It was Suzuka. I remember Suzuka, Vettel in an Aston Martin got caught up into turn one and then had to pit. And then when he came back out, it was actually the perfect thing to happen because then the weather changed or something. I feel like I remember something like that. Something, I'm not too sure. But either way, you play to your outs, and in Haas's position, it made sense doing what they did. Couldn't convert, but underlying, still a very good racing car they got there. So, very good car. Very good car they've got there. Thank you, Outlaw, for the super chat again. Who thinks there are always too many British drivers in F1? There needs to be more balance. Well, look, I think ultimately, it's we all want to see a meritocracy, don't we? And you look at the variety of nationalities that are represented in junior formulas, and it is not biased towards British. I don't believe, anyway. You're looking like F2. You've got Ollie, you've got Zach. You've got who's that AIX? I can't remember his name. You've got a few Brits, but it feels like there's a good mixture of nationalities represented. And I think what I do think inherently favours British drivers is that so many of the teams are based here. So when it comes to networking, when it comes to going to test days and all that, there's just less friction. I mean, Checo's talked about this. If you want to make it, you have to move out away from home. You can't really make it in South America. And same for the Australian lads, Oscar and Daniel. They had to move over to the UK. Taylor Barnard, that was it. Shout. So I do think that will inherently mean that it's easier to make it. It's easier to make it in the UK than it is if you're, say, Australian or, say, if you're South American or whatever. Just because of opportunity. So I think that plays into the talent pool having... Yeah, I feel like there is like a lot of representation from British drivers. But also it's not... Yeah, I don't think anyone's like, all right, we should pick this driver because they're from this country and this driver from that. Like, it should be a meritocracy. If you're good enough, you should be able to get there. Whatever your nationality, your race, your gender, it shouldn't matter. Like, if you should... That's the dream that we all want. But realistically, there are going to be barriers that will inhibit. And so many drivers who could have been amazing and could have been F1 quality and could have been some of the greatest to ever do it, would have come up against massive financial hurdles, family not prepared to... Literally, what was it? I was chatting to... when I went to South Africa a couple of months ago, last month, whenever it was, I was chatting to a lad who was... He got offered a scholarship to play rugby. South African guy got offered a scholarship to play rugby in... I think it was in France, but... He didn't take it because his parents, he was providing for the household, and his parents wouldn't okay it, and he didn't go, and he, by all account, he could have had a very promising rugby career, but these things, it's a lot more complicated than just what we see the final product. We don't see all of the decisions and all of the barriers and all of the stuff that gets in between, all of the hidden stuff that prevents. Jamie, how many months till we'll get another star? Bro, you know what? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. 24 months now, so I don't know, 36 maybe? I'll have to have a look at them at some point. Change it out. Is it coming home? Let's not start that. Let's not start that, shall we? Right, McLaren, great weekend, all in all. Obviously, Lando now, his expectations are to win. And there was an opportunity to win. And watching the replay, the safety car comes up just before he takes the... Now, it's very easy to look at the slow motion replay and be like, why didn't Lando just straight line it into the pits when it did come up on his dash before he took the Wall of Champions chicane? If he'd have been 2-3 seconds back, he probably makes it into the pits. But because it came so late, he didn't. And that ended up obviously catching the safety car. His 15-second gap was eroded and he came out just in P3, just ahead of Oscar. So, yeah, it's like he said, that's racing. It worked for him in Miami. It worked against him in Canada. So, what could have been for Lando? It wasn't in the end of the day. Obviously, from a championship point of view, that's Max getting 7 points more than Lando. And obviously, the net difference is actually like 14 points because obviously, if Lando gets the 7, Max also loses 7. So, from a championship point of view, it's a bit of an L. But all in all, you know, you win some, you lose some. That's racing. It's the way the cookie crumbles. As for Oscar, yeah, I think Oscar was having a decent race. There is still a clear inherent advantage, pace advantage that Lando has over Oscar in a race. I think that's clear to see. Obviously, Lando, that gap was opening. You know, he was losing pace to Max and George at the start, but then he was bringing it back in, and then Oscar was bringing it back in as well. Of course, Oscar had his contact with George, which for me is like there's no. They did an investigation, didn't they? After I think there was no investigation necessary, in my opinion. Yeah, so he was struggling towards the end. He obviously lost position to George and Lewis. Certainly, there was a thought in my mind, like if Lando had just given up on the fight for first and kept Oscar within his DRS, could McLaren have held off both Mercedes and got a 2-3? Now, obviously, the counter to that is that if Lando had held off and Oscar was struggling, Oscar was really struggling at the end, Lando would have been at risk of getting past as well. And then we could have been looking at a Mercedes 2-3 maybe. Now, I think Lando had the pace to hold off, but then obviously Max would have been far enough away. I felt in the moment that if you're going to maximise the team result, tell Lando to hold up. But seeing how Oscar's pace was struggling and how much he fell off the back of both Mercedes when they got past him, and again, maybe he was carrying damage. I'm not sure to what extent. Either way, whatever the excuse is, whether it's a skill issue, whether it's damage, whatever, like he was losing pace at the end. So, yeah, you could say Oscar saved Lando's P2 at the end, maybe, yeah. Obviously, the power of the DRS, though, could that have been enough? Because as long as you can get out of that traction zone into that hairpin, and then obviously it's double DRS. But if Oscar gets double DRS from Lando, it is no, you're right. It's a risk, and I think ultimately McLaren weren't prepared to risk a P2 because they could have been off the podium entirely. Again, that's the thing. If Russell gets past Oscar, then he's within DRS of Lando, and then it's like whoa. So. That's what I kind of thought in the moment, but in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, maybe that would have actually been a bit too sketchy. So, all in all, got to be pretty happy with that. Yeah, I mean, you would have thought that seeing Logan spin, they would have said to Lando, like, if the safety car comes out, pit if it's like close. But maybe not. Might needed one more safety car. Yeah, well, maybe George's little escapade helped him in the end, falling back behind Lando, because that meant he could have a free pit stop. It wasn't really a bad decision, just a different one. Yeah, Professor, I think you're kind of right there. It's easy to say in hindsight, but we just don't know how that would have played out. And they could have ended up with Lando third, Lando off the podium entirely, maybe. So, but yeah, all in all, good weekend for the Papaya. Good points. Only 7 behind Charles, Lando is now. So. Championship fight's on? No, the fight with Leclerc is definitely on. With Verstappen, it's going to take some stinky Red Bull weekends, but who knows? Mercedes, finally. Now, George is so good. He really is a fantastic racing driver. But, oh man, when he hit that sausage curb, the exact same sausage curb he hit last year, which put him into the wall, and then he eventually had to retire because of the damage that he got from that. In the end, like, he still got the P3. Lando probably would have finished ahead of him even without that. Maybe not, but I think probably. I think a win was too much. I think a win was too much for George yesterday. But, man, it's just that mistake, man. It's just silly. And we just don't... There's other drivers on the grid. That's the thing, right? Because you look at it and be like, oh, are we being overly harsh on George? Because, you know, they're humans. They make mistakes, right? But there's a reason it's become a thing. When we talk about George Russell and these bottle moments... And like Crofty literally said it on the comms. He couldn't help himself. He was like, does George make too many mistakes? That's not a statement. That's a question. And I've talked about it before. I did a video like a few weeks ago, didn't I? George Russell dilemma. Like, it's frustrating because he's so close to being like a really complete package. But he just has these... He has these L's in him. He does. No wonder there's 2 L's in Russell. Exactly. You'd think they'd cancel each other out, but clearly not. So, you look at Lando and George. There is no doubt, surely in anyone's mind, that Lando is a more consistent driver than George Russell. I think that is for sure. Like, I don't know many people who disagree with that. I think there's an argument that George is quicker over a lap that I could maybe get behind. But I think Lando I would trust more in the race. I mean, I trust Lando more in the race. So, yeah, look. It's a good weekend for Mercedes. That's what they have to take. You know, Lewis wasn't particularly happy, but still finished P4. If Lewis had qualified where George had qualified, I think Lewis would have had a better shot of winning this race than George, actually. Yeah, Lewis is the better race driver. And it's all the fine details of managing a race and actually delivering that pace consistently over different tyres with different fuel loads. Lewis is better than George in that regard. Over a lap, I think George is quicker than Lewis. Straight up, I do. So yeah, look, obviously we still don't know about that second seat, and George seems to be somewhat stepping into his own here, but Still work to go. He wasn't, he said it was a scruffy race at the end, and it certainly was a scruffy race. But he still got the P3 podium. And that move on Lewis. Oh, that move on Lewis. When he went down the inside into the World Champion chicane as well. When it was still a little bit wet. Bro, that was a man possessed. George is like, I think wheel to wheel. George makes mistakes. Kind of on his own, mostly. Like, when he made the mistake in Singapore, it wasn't a wheel-to-wheel crash. It was just he, hit the wall and went in. When he made the mistake in Canada last year, he wasn't in wheel-to-wheel combat. He just made the mistake. And that's kind of what Charles does. But I think in wheel-to-wheel combat, I think George is very good. But yeah, that was crazy move between teammates. Exactly, Kira. That was something. That was something. And obviously the move he put on Oscar, he went for it. I don't think it deserved to penalise him, because at the end of the day, like, if he'd hurt poor Oscar, then maybe. But, hard racing. He went for the move. He took the escape road and he ended up losing position because of it. But yeah, I think... Is this the start of something for Mercedes? Oh, that front wing seems to have, on a switch, seems to have found something. So time will tell. I'm not so sure about them in Spain, to be honest. McLaren are good around the high speed and seem to have sorted their low speed stuff out. I've not seen enough to get on the Mercedes bandwagon just yet, but maybe. Looking more promising than ever. Right. Racing Bulls. Should we talk about a certain Mr. Daniel Ricciardo and his spirit demon nightmare. You know, when you're having a nightmare and you can't move and there's something at your end of the bed, you're looking at you. For Daniel Ricciardo, that's Jacques Villeneuve. Jacques Villeneuve was, wow, he was on the sauce this weekend. So obviously, if you didn't, I'm sure you've seen what Jacques was saying about Daniel. He was like, why is he in F1? He's only here because of his character and his brand and his personality. And yeah, obviously that went down like a ton of bricks online amongst many Daniel Ricciardo fans. And many people agreeing with Jacques as well. And I think one thing I will say before we get into where I sit on it, like, I do think, I'm not against at all getting people on who have perspectives that aren't the norm. Like, I'm all for that. And I think the way Jacques went about it, like, yeah, he was very blunt with it. And he was very like, why is he in F1? I don't think he deserves to be here, blah, 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 whatever. But he wasn't like, I don't think he was personal about it. Like, yes, he identified that Daniel's marketing and his brand, his personality is a big reason why he believes he's still in F1. But I don't think that's like he's not saying it's bad that he has a personality. He's saying it's the fact that he's got such a good personality that is keeping him in the sport. So I think actually, like, you can disagree with his opinion for sure. And I do somewhat. I think Jacques misses some context, but I don't think I think having people on like him, he's a F1 world champion. He has legitimacy to bring these points in the same way Nico Rosberg, when he comes in and, you know, he not to the same extent as Jacques, but he can be very blunt and to the point, and he's earned that social credit, I guess, like I was saying earlier about certain drivers getting treated differently to others. Like, he's earned the right because he's a world champion and he's done it at the top level. And so I'm all for getting people on, because I don't know, I just think, like, I don't agree with Jacques' opinion. I don't agree with him, and I'll explain why. But I'm not against him being on the telly at all. I think it's good. I think it's good to have people on who have different perspectives and are gonna say it how they believe. And I don't think he overstepped a line. I don't think he was personal about it. I just think he said what he believes. I think some people really struggle seeing opinions that they don't agree with and just accepting that I don't agree, and here's why. And just move on. Like, it doesn't have to become this, like, toxic thing where, like, oh, because you said something I don't agree with, I'm gonna slander you on the internet. And, like, come on, like, what are we doing here? Like, aren't we meant to be adults that, like, you can see an opinion you don't like, a sporting opinion? It's not even anything serious, man. It's sport. Like, come on. Like, oh, if you're talking about politics, if you're talking about, like, that, fine, right? Maybe then there's more on the line. It's more important subjects. This is sport, okay? This is entertainment. Like, come on. So I'm all for, like, more people like him being on. Honestly. So, but yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with what he said. I think he always overlooks 2020. He overlooks Renault. Like, he was very good at Renault. 2020 Renault was one of his best seasons in F1. He overlooks that. I think he overlooks the fact that Daniel's had his peaks, and he has talked, you know, I think afterwards he was speaking more about consistency, because obviously Daniel did a quality job in qualified like P5, and then Jacques was like, yeah, like, he did a good job. This needs to now be a regular thing, which I don't disagree with. I think that's a fair point. And I think, you know, even the biggest Daniel Ricciardo fan watching, you got to be like, it's been inconsistent. Ever since he left Renault, it's been inconsistent. He's had these peaks. He's had these high highs. He won in Monza, like, and he won, like, well, I know Max and Lewis were doing their thing, right? But I feel like he won that race mostly on merit. I do. And yes, he has this Miami good performance, P4 in qualifying, whatever, and good qualifying here. It's not consistent enough. But do I think it's like he shouldn't be in F1? Like, I think there is enough there. There is enough there for a team to see that, yes, if we get him in the right environment. I feel similarly about Ricciardo now as I did about Seb towards his end of his career. You can't argue with and obviously Seb won, 4 world titles, right? He was way more successful than Daniel. But Daniel's won, 8 races. He's won 8 Grand Prix. Like, both of these drivers have excelled and done bits at the very top. And then towards the end of their career, they've lost confidence, they've lost, and some of those times watching Seb in a Ferrari is painful. And even in the Aston, like, it wasn't that impressive relative to Stroll. Like, beat him, but not by much. And it's like, Ricciardo now, he's had these highs, but it's like, and that's like enough, I think, for someone to hold on to something. He's not just constantly, yeah. So I can understand why a team would look at Ricciardo and why people look at Ricciardo and think, yeah, he's still got a right to be here. Even when you look at, like, De Vries got dropped by, the only difference between De Vries relative to Tsunoda and Ricciardo relative to Tsunoda over the 10 years as teammates is that De Vries doesn't have the social credit and the character and the personality and the marketability of Ricciardo. You can say the same about Checo. If Checo doesn't bring all this money into Red Bull, is he keeping that seat? I don't think so. I think that is the difference that it makes, and it's a full package. And then, but the thing is, like, does Checo deserve to be out of F1? Absolutely not. You chucked Checo in a different car, in a different team, in an environment similar to that, closer to that he had in his Racing Point Force India days, and I think we get a much better version of Sergio Perez and there's less expectation there. You're at Red Bull, bro. So it's like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be, the lights are going to be bright. So yeah, I get what Jacques saying. I think he oversimplifies it and he misses certain context that I think is important. Do I think Daniel deserves to be in the sport? I think there's other drivers. There's plenty of other drivers on the grid who deserve their place less than him. It's a tough one. It is a tough one. But again, let's, different opinions. It's fine. We can disagree. If you lot all agreed with me, if you all agree with me on everything I say, then I'm afraid you've become a member of a cult, because that's cult behavior. When you agree with everything that anyone does. Okay. And do I think Daniel would be doing a better job than Checo in that Red Bull? He's the last driver outside of Max to look any good in that Red Bull. My video this week's about Checo. So there's a few of these things that I'm going to talk about in that. So make sure you watch. I'm sorry, yeah, James, you just mentioned Minton. Minton's not here. He's out with Hannah for the day, so sad times. Anyway, right, we got massively off. That is the wrong overlay. We got massively off topic. Yuki, great, just like George, but does have a mistake in him, which I guess my understanding is that, Christian is the resistance factor to Yuki getting into a Red Bull seat, and days like yesterday, it's like, bro, it's like so good, and then crashed. Big punishment for a very fine mistake, but when you've got that drying line, it just takes breaking a little bit too late, and not good. So yeah, look, all in all, good weekend for Daniel. Not so good weekend for Yuki. It's good, but not good. Both got to Q3, so moving in a good direction. Racing Bulls versus Aston Martin could be very interesting the rest of this year. Red Bull Racing. And it is, first mistake of the year. I think, Lowell, you can include Yuki throwing his toys out the pram at the end of Bahrain as a mistake, because that was a big L, and that will not have helped his case. So I'm including that for me. And thank you, Jamie, again for the super chat. All hail Lord Tommo and Lord Minton. No, he's the Lord. I'm the pauper. Okay. Thank you, Sky Outlaw, by the way. Sky is biased. You got to give me more than that, Outlaw. If you're going to say they're biased, you got to say who are they biased towards and who are they biased against. I feel like I know who you're going to say, but this, like, when people in the comments say I'm biased, I'm like, explain to me who I'm biased towards at least, because the amount of times I get accused of being biased towards and against the same driver in the same video is hilarious. But that's what you learn, that you can't please everyone. You just can't. No matter who you are, it's just an important thing to accept in life. You're not going to please everyone, so just do your thing your way. Okay. There's a lesson to all. Yeah, I mean, I'm biased towards Albon, but I'm very open that I have a preference towards Alex, and I'm going to inherently perceive what he does in a more favourable light. But also, I think that's because I like Alex and he's my favourite driver. I then go the extra mile to like really understand his performances, and then that gives me more ammunition when I'm defending him, I guess. But yeah, what do you think? What do you reckon Yuki Tsunoda's game plan is? Thank you, Cameron, for the super chat. Well, he's extended, isn't he? Also, yeah, before we get to Red Bull, Yuki has extended for next year. That is now confirmed. So he will be in that car in 2025. They've kicked the can down the road, Red Bull, by giving Checo a 1 year. It's not a 2 year, really. It's a 1+1. So it's a 1 year. Checo 1 more year. Yuki 1 more year. And then we'll solve this problem later. Maybe get Lawson in over Ricciardo, but Lawson doesn't bring in the sponsors like Ricciardo does. So unless Red Bull can be like to Visa, Cash App, all these lot, Hugo, be like, stay. Even though we're going to get rid of Ricciardo, stay. Please don't leave. I mean, Yuki definitely, Liam definitely deserves a seat. It would be a crying shame if he doesn't get on the grid. But time will tell. Right, okay, Red Bull. Yep, great drive from Max. I've already waxed lyrical about it. He made the difference. He's the best driver in F1, and he's almost certainly going to win the championship this year. But I still think it's going to be a fight. It's going to be what our class is a fight. It's going to go to maybe 2 races to go, I reckon. But he's still probably going to win it because he's the best driver in F1. And on average, that car is now still, capable enough. Still at least top 2 best cars on average now. I feel like where he is. Not much more to say on Max. Checo. I'm gonna do a video that I've literally scripted already, and I'm gonna film after this, talking about Checo, because I can't. It actually genuinely upsets me. Like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I don't know why they keep doing this. Like, it's a square peg round hole, and you can try and force it in as much as you like, but it's not going to work. I'm going to save it for the video, all right? I'm going to save it for the video. Checo 1+1 looking like a 0+2 real quick. Oh, yo. Ouch. Yeah, watch this space on Checo. It's... Why? Why are we doing this again? Well, look, Sauber, Bottas once again, well clear of Joe. Since I did my video about Joe, he's just taken L after L. It's not been good for Zhou Guanyu. He is not putting himself... Like, does Zhou Guanyu deserve to be in Formula 1? No, he does not. I think that's very fair to say, okay? And if he stays, if he gets the seat at Haas, whatever, that's because of the money he's bringing. He's not done enough to prove that he deserves to be in this sport. Neither is Logan Sargent. There's a few drivers you could say don't deserve to be in the sport. I think Logan and Joe are the two that they've had enough time now. You sink or swim, and they've both sunk. So, but could I see his money keeping him in somehow? The sponsor backing he brings, the support he brings. Oh, and Stroll, obviously, yeah, Stroll. We've had enough time with Stroll to know that he does not deserve, on merit, to be in F1. 1.5 hour stream. Yeah, geez, Patrick, I've gone on and on. my throat. Well, the voice is still keeping going. I'm gonna make myself a bagel after this. It's gonna be good. I've got nothing to say about these lot. Just don't. I just don't. I don't ever have anything to say about Sauber because it's just bad. And it's like, yes, all right, stick an Audi power unit in it, but they're still developing the chassis at Himwell. Like, no wonder Carlos is considering Williams over an Audi. Like, he's got an Audi works drive just there. Go on, take it. You've got to wait a year, but it's all yours. And he's like, I might actually go to Williams. Like, that tells you all you need to know about what is going on here. Oh, it's a shocker. And you know what? Like, in this moment, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? You've got Alex, who's give confidence to the project. You've got James Vowles, who seems to really be switched on. Maybe Newey's thinking about Williams. It's Williams or Ferrari for him. Either way, Pat Fry's in place. They're moving in a good direction. They're quicker than Sauber at the moment. They're going to have a Mercedes power unit, which you know is going to be good. Like, they're very confident that's going to be good. McLaren is showing that you can be a customer and still do bits. Audi's such a punt. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Sorry, Sauber, but also get that sponsor off your car. Trash. And then finally, Williams. Yeah. Alex, you're right. Honestly, and I'm not saying this, I promise, I swear on Minton's life, right? Nothing's crossed, okay? Nothing's crossed. No, I just cross it then. Nothing's crossed right now. So, Alex doing that overtake was sick. It was like, I don't think he meant it. Like, as in, he's trying to defend position, and then he breaks, and obviously the Alpine, I think, in front of him, just kind of goes a bit wide, so he's like, oh, yeah, I'll go up there. It's opportunistic. I do think it kind of just, like, presented itself to him, and then he was just like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go down there, because otherwise you have a crash. It was sick, but that's the one thing I saw. I was like, that's sick. It's really sick, but I think he got a bit lucky with it. I'll be real. I get a bit lucky with it. But otherwise, very good weekend from Alex. Q3, good pace in the race. He's saying after, they typically kind of, they went pretty conservative because they had something to lose. That's the thing, because they were on the fringe of the points and in the points for most of the race. They had something to lose, so they weren't going to be big and bold with his strategy calls, which is fair. And obviously, Carlos spinning took him out. Not much he can do there, so shame on that front. And then Logan, obviously got out of Q1 finally this year. But, well, first he kind of goes straight and just taps the wall, and then second he spins and smashes it into the barrier, which was the safety car that then messed up Lando. Lando had his own Abu Dhabi 21 moment just in isolation there, didn't he? Sorry, we still not over that yet? Come on. Had his own little moment just in isolation there. And, it's upgrades hopefully helped. Looking at where Alex's pace was, hopefully that's moved them in a better direction. And, we'll see. Time will tell. Logan is worth keeping. He'll be the Sonoda of next year. Aussie Donkey, look, so I was you like 4 months ago at the start of this season. I was like, this is it, Logan. This is the year he moves, he develops, he becomes like, he moves on like Yuki did, right? We're not seeing it. So I'd love to agree with you, Donkey, but I have now moved past that point. I'm further down the road. I think you will get to that point eventually, but I'm just a bit further ahead. Hello, Maxim from Moldova. Love it. But yeah, I think that's everything, really. Not got too much more to say about this race. It was chaos. It was fun. I had a great time. And I hope you did too. Thank you all for watching this stream, wherever you are in the world. Don't forget to like if you're live on YouTube or you're watching this after the fact on YouTube. And if you're watching this after the fact, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll do my best to get down and give you some responses as well. Thank you to everyone who's listening audio only. And yeah, we've got new video later this week. Hopefully, plans tomorrow actually. New video tomorrow, but I'm going to get my head down after this. Have some lunch, get my head down, get video done as much as I can, get it out tomorrow, and probably try and get a video live over the weekend as well, because no race this weekend. And then another video next week. So there'll be 3 more videos before the next live stream, which will be the pre-race live stream for the 2024 Spanish Grand Prix. Yes, thank you all for coming. Everyone in the chat. Marlon, Jake C, Tom, Pit Lane Pulse, Notorious BEN, FH4 player, Platilobium, Dante, Alif, Mailer, Yo-Yo, Max, Cone, Liam, Justice, Sammy, Patrick. Don't read my username. Done it again. Kane, big up Kane. Hope life is well, mate. And Alita, Sam, Kira, Anders, Marlon, Shabby, SF, Chino, Wesley, Francine, Bass, Loel. Did I miss your super chat? I'm sorry. I've got my super chats up on here. Oh no, I did. Where is it? Loel. I did miss your super chat, Loel. Don't worry. I get it now. All right. Better late than never. Hey Tom, Max is just teasing us. I'm certain of it. After Imola in Canada, last year was too boring for him. Now he's making it interesting for himself and us. I predict 4 straight 2-second wins. Look, he's got so much capacity. He's got so much racing IQ. He can just he can make this. He can make these gaps 2 second every race. I don't know if you actually believe that, Lowell. I don't. But I do. What I do agree with is that he is enjoying winning these races when they're tight way more. Like, I know he said it, didn't he said in a presser, he was like, I'd happily win by 20, 30 seconds every race because I've been fighting my whole career. Bro, no, come on. That Imola victory, you could see in his demeanour that he was way more gassed about that result than he had been when he won Spa by 35 seconds. Come on. Nah, and it's like anything in life. When you got to work harder for something, the payoff is bigger. It feels greater, you know. So yeah, I know. I reckon I do. I agree that he's loving it. I don't agree that he's manufacturing it. I do think this is finally it's taken a long time, right? But with the ATR aerodynamic testing regulations, with that closing things up and stopping the top teams running away, plus Red Bull's penalty as well, so they haven't been able to bring as many upgrades, and the other teams have. You know, McLaren had like 95% of the allocation because of how bad a start they had to last year. So they were able to cook and like bring a lot of work onto that car. So I do think this is a natural. This was always going to happen. It took a bit longer than I was hoping, but it was always going to happen. And I think we're in for a good fight. Yeah, that's right, a fight, title fight. Max will still win, but it'll be a fight. Not fully one-sided, you know. Lando and Leclerc will get a few rounds in, but Max will win, you know, on decision. That's my perspective. Thank you, Say, as well, for the super chat. Would have gone Williams for Clanger team, but if Ferrari taught kids how to cross the road, they'd all get hit by a bus. Couldn't think of a better way to end the stream myself. Say, thank you very much for your support. Thank you much, everyone, for watching, wherever you are in the world. It's a pleasure as always. My name's Tommo. New video tomorrow. Thanks again. Have a good one. Tatty bye-byes. Bye-bye.